In Vila das Conchas, an emotional story about second chances and the power of true love. Subscribe to TalesCrypt, hit the bell, and dive into this journey with us. Shall we begin? The sea of Vila das Conchas, salty sea breeze brushed against the palm trees, swaying gently at the edge of the small Vila das Conchas. In Brazil, where life seemed to drag on slowly, like the waves dissolving into the sand, the village was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the stories told by fishermen at dusk passed from generation to generation. But behind this seaside tranquility lay a world of unfulfilled dreams, impossible loves, and destinies waiting to unfold. The Silveira family was one of the most traditional in the village, but life had not been kind to them since the passing of the patriarch. Dona Beatriz, a woman of strong personality, took the reins of the household with firm hands, concerned not only with the family's survival, but also with the future of her 5 daughters. They were her precious jewels, and she was determined to find them good marriages, as if that were the only way to secure their futures. Isabel, the eldest daughter, was the most aware of the situation. Intelligent, sharp, and with a critical view of the world around her, she distanced herself from everything expected of her. She didn't believe in the arranged marriages her mother insisted on. For her, freedom and independence were more valuable than any promising union. Her sarcasm often hid a deep pain, the pain of being judged by those who didn't understand her. Then, everything changed. The arrival of 2 men from the capital shook the fragile balance of the village. Rafael Mendez, a wealthy and reserved businessman, didn't seem interested in local stories or the village's beauty. His focus was on a major investment, a luxury resort that would transform the simple lives of the locals. By his side, Diego Almeida, his carefree friend, quickly became enchanted by Marina, Beatrice's second daughter, while Marina, with her sweet eyes and easy smile, succumbed to Diego's attention. Isabel couldn't help but feel a chill when she saw Rafael. He seemed everything she despised: tall, imposing, and with that calculating gaze that made her feel like he was already evaluating her every move. She immediately hated him. But Isabel's hatred grew stronger when she discovered that Rafael was behind Diego's distancing from her sister. He had convinced the young man that the Silveira family wasn't suitable for him. It was a bitter feeling, being seen as inferior, and Isabel couldn't swallow the humiliation. Anger burned in her veins, and she distanced herself further, trying to hide her pain. That's when a local surfer named Gabriel entered the story. Charming, charismatic, and with a smile that hid secrets, he became a kind of confidant for Isabel. He told her stories about Raphael's past, insinuating that he had harmed someone in a business deal. Doubt took hold of Isabel. How could someone act with such disdain for a family as simple as hers? But fate, as always, has its own rules. And Raphael was about to change the course of the story. He approached Isabel in a strange way, as if feeling the need to redeem himself for something he didn't even understand. It was an impulse, a moment without explanation. He confessed his love to her with sincerity in his eyes, without rehearsed words, but Isabel couldn't believe it. How could someone as proud as him love someone like her? She rejected him vehemently, accusing him of ruining her sister's romance and being a selfish, arrogant man. However, Raphael didn't give up. Something inside him drove him to prove to Isabel that he wasn't the man she thought he was. So, he wrote a letter full of unspoken words, full of truths he had never dared to tell before. He revealed to Isabel that Gabriel, the charming surfer she trusted so much, had tried to deceive him in a business deal, leaving him with a huge loss. And about Diego and Marina, he told the raw truth. He never wanted to separate them because of social class, but because he believed with all his soul that Marina didn't reciprocate Diego's feelings. He didn't want to see him suffer. Read and reread the letter, and each word, like a precise arrow, struck her heart. Something inside her broke. Rafael wasn't the man she had imagined. He had failed, but he had also fought for something greater, for someone he loved, even without knowing how. He wasn't perfect, but who was? The sea roared outside, as if the universe itself awaited Isabel's response. Doubt consumed her. Rafael had touched a deep point within her, and perhaps he was capable of loving her in a way no one else ever could. But fate, once again, had its own plans. Sophia, the youngest sister, disappeared. She ran away with Gabriel, and the scandal threatened to swallow the entire family. The weight of shame was immense, and Beatrice, who had always fought for her daughters, saw her world crumble. But Rafael, surprisingly, didn't stay at a distance. He went after Sophia, seeking to save her from the consequences of her own escape. Without Isabel's knowledge, he did everything in his power to ensure Gabriel committed to marrying Sophia, preventing the scandal from destroying the family's life further. When all seemed lost, Isabel discovered what Rafael had done, and something in her changed. He wasn't the man she had imagined, but he was there, fighting, facing whatever was necessary for her and her family. He wasn't perfect, but who was? The warmth of the morning sun reflected on the shimmering waters of Vila das Conchas, but in Isabel's heart, the weight of the previous night still lingered. She felt as if she had been dragged by a huge wave of emotions, and now every thought about Raphael seemed like an internal storm. He whom she had judged to be the last type of man capable of touching her, had shown a version of himself she didn't want to accept but couldn't ignore. Raphael's letter still burned in her mind. He had shown vulnerability, something Isabel had never imagined possible for someone like him. How could she ignore his words? How could she ignore the gesture of someone willing to act to protect her family, even if, deep down, he was just trying to find redemption for his own pride? But her mind was clouded with so many questions, so many uncertainties. And the worst of all was the confusion she felt about Gabriel. He, who had been her greatest source of trust, was now a shadow of disillusionment. Sophia, her sister, had run away with him, and Isabel felt betrayed in ways she couldn't even describe. The following days passed with an unsettling calm. The fishermen continued their routines. The wind still blew with the same intensity, but Vila das Conchas would never be the same. The conversations in the square now revolved around rumors about Gabriel, about Sophia's escape, but no one knew for sure how the story would unfold. Isabel found herself unable to act, trapped between her conflicting emotions and the need to make a decision. And then, on a stifling afternoon, he appeared again. Raphael stood before the Silvera house, as if the sea had brought him back, a force of nature she couldn't control. He was more serious than ever, but something in his eyes seemed tired, as if he had realized he couldn't save everything, and maybe not even himself. He didn't say anything at first, but Isabel could feel the weight of the words stuck in his throat. Isabel, I know you must be wondering if everything I did was right, and I don't know if it was. I don't know how I can make things better, but I can assure you of one thing. What I did for you. ... And for Diego, Rafael spoke with a sincerity that seemed to overflow from his chest. She couldn't respond immediately. His words reverberated in her mind, but her mouth remained closed. How could he speak with such certainty? How could she, who had been so skeptical, believe his intentions now? Sophia, Isabel's youngest sister, returned home later that same day. She was shaken, but there was something different about her air of someone who had been confronted with the reality of her own choices. Gabriel had been less than she expected. He hadn't protected her the way she had imagined. He loved her in a superficial way, but not enough to face the consequences of his actions. Sophia's love for him had, in fact, been an escape. And now, she knew she needed to return to her family, somehow that still felt safer. Isabel welcomed her with a silent hug, and both understood each other without needing words. They didn't talk about the scandal about Gabriel, but both felt, in their hearts, that there was a greater force uniting them, something beyond blood, something deeper than they had ever experienced. It was that night, as the sky filled with stars, that Isabel and Rafael met again. He didn't speak, just looked at her with a gaze that carried a mute plea. And, as if the world around them had stopped for a moment, she approached him. "Do you really believe you can change?" Isabel's voice was full of pain and skepticism. Rafael looked at her, the intensity of his gaze carrying all the internal struggle he was going through. He knew she wasn't just asking about him, but about everything he represented, about everything he had destroyed to reach her. "I can't change the past, Isabel, but I can show you, day after day, that I'm capable of being the man you need." And so, on the night when the stars seemed to be the only witnesses to their hearts, Isabel and Rafael took the first step. It wasn't an easy step. There were no magical promises, just a choice. The choice to move forward, even with the doubts, the scars, the open wounds. Marina and Diego were also at their own crossroads. Diego, so passionate and idealistic, found himself torn between his love for his family and his love for Marina. But Marina, with her sweetness, was beginning to realize that perhaps she had given her best to someone who didn't deserve her in the way she had hoped. She finally understood that she could no longer follow the path of idealized love and needed to live her own story. But as everyone prepared for the consequences of their choices, the sea continued to sing its background song as an eternal reminder that life, like the waves, is full of ups and downs, and perhaps the truth was there. In the constant movement of the water, in the eternal return of what we cannot control, but to which we are inescapably tied. The dawn brought with it the weight of the decision, like a dense cloud hovering over Isabel and Rafael. They had confessed their love, but the ghosts of the past still haunted them. For Isabel, there was a constant doubt. Could she fully trust someone who seemed so immune to feelings like Rafael? And Rafael, in turn, knew that his love for Isabel wouldn't be easy to win. The scars of the past were etched in their hearts, and the path to true intimacy would require more than words and empty promises. The change in the village began to unfold slowly. Rafael's luxury resort was finally under construction, but the residents of Vila das Conchas couldn't help but feel that this wasn't just something that would change the region's economy. It would also change their own lives in ways they couldn't yet foresee. The tension was in the air, like a breeze before the storm. Meanwhile, Marina and Diego faced their own dilemmas. After so many ups and downs, Diego finally understood that his love for Marina wasn't enough to overcome the barriers of the life he wanted for himself. He wanted more than just a quiet life by the sea. Marina, in turn, had already realized that the romance she had dreamed of didn't align with the deeper needs of her heart. She didn't want to live in the shadow of what was expected of her. She wanted to be free to decide her own destiny. The breakup between Diego and Marina was gentle but inevitable. They said goodbye not with bitterness, but with the understanding that sometimes true love isn't enough to save a relationship. They parted without resentment, but with the wisdom that life would go on, and both needed to move forward. The wind, always present, blew stronger that night, as if the village were waiting for something big, something that would change everything. Sophia, Isabel's youngest sister, grew increasingly distant, and the scandal of her escape with Gabriel finally seemed to fade into the mist of the past. Gabriel, who had been the cause of the pain, proved powerless in the face of the consequences of his own choices. He tried to reconcile with Sophia, but she, finally, understood what she had never known before. Idealized love wasn't enough to sustain a life. She walked away from him with her head held high, determined to find her own path, without depending on a man who didn't respect her. But the greatest challenge was yet to come. Isabel and Rafael were still in their own maze of unresolved feelings. Rafael knew he had to face his own fears, his own insecurities, if he wanted to be the man Isabel deserved. But with every step he took to get closer to her, he felt the barrier of his pride, his social status, and the world that separated them. One afternoon, as the shadows began to stretch across the horizon, Isabel decided to confront him. No longer with sarcasm or indifference, but with the sincerity that only a broken heart can offer. Rafael, you've always seen me as someone distant, someone who didn't belong to this world. But the truth is, we're more alike than you think. You carry a weight you shouldn't carry alone. I also carry my own scars. We can finally see each other as we truly are. Rafael remained silent, absorbing every word she said. He knew the path to her wouldn't be easy, but his confidence in her was beginning to blossom in a way he hadn't expected. He took a step forward, feeling that he was finally seeing Isabel, not just as a woman to conquer, but as someone with whom he could build something real. I'm not perfect, he said, his voice low and full of emotion. I've made mistakes, and I know you may never fully forgive me. But what I want most is to be someone you can trust. And if you give me this chance, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make you see that in the end, I was the one who was wrong. Isabel looked at him, and for the first time, she saw in him not just a proud and determined man, but someone willing to change. She knew that the love they had, though new and full of imperfections, was something rare and real. The pain of the past began to be softened by Raphael's sincerity, and perhaps by her own desire to start anew. And then, without further words, she took a step toward him, and with that, fate seemed to have finally aligned. That night, as the sky was covered in stars, the calm sea whispered promises of new beginnings. Raphael and Isabel were there, together, not as heroes or villains, but as two human beings trying, with all their strength, to overcome what separated them. Marina found her own path, choosing to dedicate herself to her passion for art and culture, stepping away from the weight of societal expectations. Diego set off on new adventures, discovering his own identity and dreams. far from the quiet life of the village, and so with time, loves and destinies adjusted. Raphael's resort brought changes to Vila das Conchas, but it also brought new opportunities. For those willing to embrace the future without fear, Isabel and Rafael weren't perfect. But together, they had learned to build something real, something that didn't depend on status, money, or appearances. They had discovered, through hardships and joys, that true love isn't about perfection, it's about acceptance, growth, and walking together, even in the hardest moments. And the sea, as always, continued to sing its eternal song. And so ends the tale of Isabel and Rafael, a story of love, pride, and redemption that unfolds like the waves of Vila das Conchas, from the quiet shores of the village to the storms of betrayal and sacrifice. Their journey reminds us that love can heal even the deepest wounds. But this is just one of many tales we share here at TalesCrypt. Tell us in the comments, what did you think of Isabel and Raphael's fate? Which moment touched you the most? Where are you watching us from? We love hearing from you. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and share it with those who appreciate a good tale. Your support helps our channel grow and brings even more captivating stories your way. Subscribe to TalesCrypt and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next mysterious and enchanting story. Get ready. The next story is already on its way.